So before we get in, I was telling the guys before we started, I wanted to. I'm getting a kick out of. I've always got a kick out of Dana White and Steven Espinoza going at each other. So a couple weeks ago, Dana White came in after his Mexican Independence Day fight in Las Vegas, which Canelo actually stepped off the date to fight tomorrow, which I thought was pretty big of him to move his fight for the UFC. Basically, Dana came out and said that they had such a good weekend. He goes, I will go that date every year. I don't care if somebody here in town gets the date at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. I'll go in the opposing arena and go head to head the next year. So basically, what he's saying is he wants to go head to head boxing every year. That's a very popular date. He's pushed heavy into Mexico. And here's Steven Espinoza's response yesterday or 2 days ago at the press conference. It was kind of a crack up because, like I said, these two like to go at each other.
Undisputed champion against another elite undisputed champion. This is special. It's different. The event on Saturday night will generate a gate of over $20 million. That's a rare feat in combat sports. It's rare in concerts or events of any kind. But this will be the third time in the last 6 months that we've done a gate of $20 million. Again, our third $20 million gate in the last 6 months. To put that in perspective, UFC has never done a gate of $20 million in its entire history. We've done it 3 times since April.
That Showtime might be leaving boxing.
That's incredibly unfortunate. Production of that show is fantastic. The guy who runs Showtime Boxing is a great human being. It's unfortunate to hear this. Fuck Espinoza. And it's about time that shitty product is off the air.
You're sad to see it go, I see.
I love it. It always Dana White's entertaining. You got to give it to him, man. He's a hell of a promoter. But yeah, it was just one of those things where, Espinoza's not lying. I mean, UFC, as big as they've gotten, props to Dana White for making UFC as big as it become. It still doesn't generate the money close to what boxing does. I mean, to do 20 million gates in 1 year. And boxing holds a record. It was Pacquiao 75, almost $80 million gate. UFC dreams of paydays like that, despite the fact that Dana wants to go head to head with boxing. Do you guys think he's making a mistake to do that on Mexican Independence Day, which has been Canelo's, and before that it was Mayweather's, and it was always those 2 fight dates every year? We know boxing is gonna, except for this last September, boxing takes over those dates. So you go first, Jesto. What do you think?
I honestly think that it's just a power move. I think that MMA has gained a lot of attraction over the years. A lot of the boxing fans are now just combat fans, or mixed martial art fans. And I think that boxing has depended on that date or those 2 dates for a certain amount of time. And Dana's like, well, shit, I have a product that's just as good, just as liable, has just as big as a fan base. Why not, try to cut or give me a slice of the pie? I think it's a great business move, to be honest with you. But me as a boxing fan, I know what that means. That means that it's going to interfere with some of the bigger mega fights that we, over the years have, grown to love. So maybe boxing's, we're not generating as much more money next year or the years to come on those 2 dates. Maybe we have to shuffle and move some things around. I just think Dana White's trying to shake things up. And to be totally honest with you, if you look at it from a business standpoint, it's an excellent move. You know what I'm saying? It's an excellent move because boxing has always depended on those dates for years. You don't even have to think about it. It's going to be a mega fight on those 2 dates. And Dana's putting out just as well produced product. Why not try to tap into some of that market, that fan base? That's what I think.
That's true. do you think, Vince?
Well, I agree with Justo to some extent. I mean, they're two different sports, and there's enough to go around. I mean, if you go to a mega fight in Vegas, and Jesse will tell you this, and there's a mega fight, Canelo fight, you go to the rest of the strip, it's still full. You know, there MMA fights, it's a different fan demographic, and I think it's healthy for competition. I mean, and Dana recognizes that. And yeah, boxing, we do generate so much more money, but we do it at a lesser pace. Dana White will have these shows on the 30th, and then next week he could be in Australia having another world title show. And then after that, he could be over in New York. MMA, they're different. UFC has done a phenomenal job, and Dana's a guy that just likes to shake up the cage. I understand what he's saying from that standpoint, because he does have his UFC Fight Network that works with 360 promotions out here, and they do boxing. They have a couple real good prospects, and he still works in boxing. And I think he's just trying to say, just because, you guys have this mega fight, which only happens maybe how many mega fights do we get a year? This will be the second, but is this really a mega fight on the same level as Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence? No, but it's still a high profile fight because it's a pound for pound guy in Canelo. But see, the UFC just has more competitive fight cards, than boxing does, because they'll put a bunch of, and yeah, they're right, they don't generate the same money, but they do very well. I just think it's a different fan. It's a different fan demographic. And it's apples and oranges. If you go to Vegas and you want to go to the UFC championship fight at T-Mobile, you'll go there. And if there's Canelo's fighting, Benavidez at another, area, whatever, you'll go to that. I think either one will be packed because they're two different fan demographics.
Yeah, that's true. And then Dana's been for probably the past 3 years heavy pushing into Mexico, and the sport has gotten very popular. At the same time, if you look at the layout in boxing, there's Canelo in terms of Mexican fighters, and then there's everyone else, and there's not another big draw of a Mexican national in boxing. So when Canelo retires, I mean, he's got 3 more fights, including this one. Who steps up right from those dates? Who's gonna take that? Terrence Crawford's at the end of his career, and so is Canelo. So who are the next big superstars that are going to take over those dates? I mean, could it be Tank? I mean, Tank's probably the biggest money maker after those two. So who's it going to be? So what do you think, Gio?
I think this affects boxing more than the UFC, because the UFC has their own fans. They got their own demographic of fans that could sell out these shows, or for the most part do good on the numbers. Now you got somebody else throwing a show, a UFC event, Dana throwing an event on a boxing show. Now boxing fans have choices. Boxing fans sometimes are not too loyal to boxing. They'll go and watch a better fight if they think it's a better fight. And vice versa, it's not going to work for like that. UFC doesn't have to worry about losing their fans, because the majority of their fans are legit MMA fans. They can care less about boxing. So I think it affects more anybody in boxing fighting that same weekend than it would affect the UFC.
Right.